that we talked to our good friend Larry Krueger, host of Niners Nightly. And Larry suffered through some tough shows with a lot of callers that have a lot to get off their chest. But now we have Larry as a guest of our own on the UMA guest line. Morning, Krug.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How you guys doing?
Oh, doing well. I realized I just said morning, and it feels like 7 in the morning when I look outside the window, but I guess we're getting into the lunchtime hour.
Morning, noon. I mean, it's morning somewhere for somebody, I'm sure.
Yeah,
you're all
exactly.
right.
And the Niners have moved back their practices to later today after we're done, and they're going to have an open locker room at 2:40. Are you on your way to Levi's to watch Bonus Monday, Larry?
I am actually here sitting in the Sharp Club, the Eastern Wing. I've been here for about an hour and just getting ready for practice and getting ready to do Niners Nightly tonight, and eager to go into the locker room and talk to some of the guys today.
Yeah, an open locker room will be interesting at 2:40 because they talked after the game, but now the events of the weekend and the desire of the team to suspend Devondre the remainder of the year. So let's just start with that because I think many a Monday after a game you would come on with us and we break down Devondre Campbell. And early in the year was not good. We wondered about D. Winters taking playing time. I think Curtis Robinson, had he not torn his ACL, Larry, in that one practice on a special teams play, would be the starting linebacker next to Fred, and Devondre would have lost some time. But then he played better. But then Dre comes back and balls out, and Winters has the knee or the neck, and Demetrius has the knee. I mean, you've been covering this sport for a long, long time. I mean, this story of Devondre Campbell started out as perplexing on a lot of levels to just what the hell happened. And looking back on it, I think him not going back into the game on Thursday at that pivotal point where the Rams were embarking on that 17-play drive where they ran it and threw over the middle and Puka and the block of Dotson on Demetrius. And just looking back on it, I mean, just give me the the Campbell story from start to finish. And if he goes in the game and plays the way he did against the Bears, is the outcome of the game different on Thursday night?
No, he absolutely could have affected the outcome of the game. I mean, that's the tragedy here, in a football sense, is that this guy walked out, cost himself, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process, his reputation. I mean, Greg, at the end of the day, all any of us really have is our reputation among our peers and the public, and his reputation among his peers and the public has gone in the toilet, never to be recovered. So I mean, he did himself a huge amount of damage. Whoever advised him gave him poor advice. I'd like to say I'm surprised by this, but I actually have been talking about this for over 6 weeks ago. I said, as soon as the 49ers ask this player to take a step back, and he was only a placeholder for Greenlaw, so it was always understood that he was going to take a step back to everybody except for Devondre. I mean, and you could see the personality type. I said, as soon as this guy is asked to take a step back, they will literally have to cut him and probably, escort him off of the campus because, I mean, he's just so proud, not going. Some guys are just wired this way. It's what they need to succeed in the world of pro football. It's like, I am awesome, and I can only think of myself in that way, and I can't think for the team in any way. So, he made a bad decision, and it's unfortunately going to be his legacy.
Talking to Larry Krueger here on the UMA guest line. You can catch him tonight at 6 o'clock for Niners Nightly. Krug, we got to talk about Deebo Samuel, too, because Devondre Campbell has sort of shed the spotlight away from others who did not play very well. And look, Deebo, of course, did not quit on his team. He's a great competitor. He's done a lot of great things in a 49er uniform. But the bottom line is he made some noise on social media. The ball got thrown his way a lot. He did not deliver, and it was costly in a 6-8 falling to the season, now losing. What does the future hold for Deebo Samuel, in your opinion? I mean, we've asked a lot of these guys about it. Matt Mayoko believes he's going to be back on the team next year. Where do you stand with Deebo with how things have kind of unfolded here in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about what makes sense or even maybe what's best for the team. It's the whim of Kyle Shanahan. I mean, this is the 49ers are run by Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan loves this player, and if he wants him on his roster next year, he's going to have him. So, but that doesn't mean that he's not an old 28, which I think he is. It doesn't mean that he hasn't lost a step, because I think he has. He's only averaged about 2.5 yards a carry this year. Life has a weird way of calling your bluff. Be careful what you wish for. I thought life called his bluff in this game. You want the ball. You haven't regressed. He got the ball, and he kind of showed us that he didn't produce. I mean, I don't want to say he's regressed, but he didn't produce in the moment. He dropped that touchdown. He took his eyes off the football. It's just a concentration thing. That was going to be a house call. That was going to be absolutely a touchdown. So, what are their options? Will they trade him? The Ravens showed interest in him around the draft, but I think the price didn't match up with what the Niners wanted. Do they cut him? I can't picture that. To me, I don't. The way the cap works, if you cut him, you're still going to have the same cost to your team as if you kept him. So they're, in a lot of ways, it makes more sense to keep him and try to work something out. He's due, I believe, $17 million. So this is going to be a tough decision. So I'm not sure what it holds, but I would say he's either going to be traded or at a price tag that's going to be shockingly low, or they're going to work out some kind of deal and he's going to be here next year.
Yeah, and obviously the finances, we knew it was coming this year anyway to have it happen in a year like this, but they're going to play out the year and see if they can get to 9-8 or try to be close to it. But they got a lot of tough choices to make financially once the offseason does start, and Deebo's one of them. Charvarius Ward, Aaron Banks, Talanoa Hufanga. But I want to ask you about Dre Greenlaw and where they're at. And he obviously balled out. The story of the night on Thursday unfortunately turned to Devondre Campbell. It really was about big play Dre coming back after being away 10 months and a day and 305 days since tearing the left Achilles just entering the Super Bowl. He obviously is a difference maker on this defense. The players love him. But just financially, a lot of teams, like the Rams, the way they build their defense, they don't put money in the off-the-ball linebackers. Ernest Jones IV has flipped Seattle's fortunes until maybe last night. They traded him to Tennessee, and then he winds up in Seattle. A lot of teams just don't pay stacked linebackers. The Niners have Fred Warner on their roster, Larry, and he's one of the highest paid off-the-ball linebackers, first-team All-Pro Fred. The way Dre Greenlaw played the other night, can you afford to pay? I mean, they love him. I think I know the answer, but how do you pay two off-the-ball linebackers like they're paying Fred and what they may have to do to play Dre Greenlaw?
Yeah, I mean, and you didn't even mention the one that, also hurt was Azeez. I mean, Azeez is a great player, and they had to let him go because he's playing in this defense, 22% of the snaps or whatever it is. You're in your sub package, 80% of the time, 78% of the time, or whatever it is. So you're playing your nickel corner more than you're playing that third linebacker, and so they couldn't afford Azeez. But man, they missed him because they didn't. Azeez was also their insurance against Dre or Fred going down in the middle of the game, and he was so good. I just think that you're going to have a much different room without certain guys, and Dre Greenlaw is one of those guys. And I just think that there's good players, there's great players, and then there's tone-setting culture players. And I really believe that you got to. I know there's cap suggestions and ways to build a roster, but I think you have to kind of audible as a personnel department and say, who are our difference makers? Who are our tone setters? Who are the guys that really make the room go? And he's one of those guys. So I really think that he's worth every penny you pay him because he does an extraordinary amount of the heavy lifting in the run defense game. And they ask their linebackers to do so much in this defense on that second level, control that entire area. And he and Fred can do it, but I think you got to compensate him, even if it's not in your budget.
Talking to Larry Krueger here as I tell you that you're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. About an hour left to go before we hand things off to Dirty Work on a Monday. Larry, for all intents and purposes, this is a team that's not going to be going to the playoffs. So a lot of the talk is going to be looking ahead to the next season. And that's kind of what I want to ask you here. While the 49ers still try to compete and win, how can Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy in particular use the end of this season to get on the same page and work through and address some of the issues that are within their control that go beyond just things like injuries?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, it really is about charting out what you want this last month to be about. I mean, I think you got to set goals for yourselves. I think you got to have an open dialogue, Brock and Kyle do, about this season and how it went south, why it went south. Of course, the entire coaching staff at the end of the year will do a complete autopsy on the year and make their evaluations to the front office going forward into the offseason. But I think the other big thing that we want to see is I want to see at least on-field reps, Brock Purdy to Jacob Cowing, Brock Purdy to Ricky Pearsall. I mean, to me, the story that is not being emphasized enough is that last year, the Niners' top three weapons of Ayuk, Deebo, and CMC scored 40 touchdowns. This year, that trio has 2. But the worst part of that story is that there's no promise that next year they're going to get anything. We don't know what they're going to get out of Ayuk, who I think is going to miss a good chunk of the year. We just discussed Deebo may or may not be on the roster, and he definitely looks like an old 28 to me. And then CMC's got tendonitis in both Achilles and is coming off a PCL injury. So we don't know what you're getting out of those guys a year older. So in addition to building up the O-line, the D-line, the linebacking core, plugging a few other holes, they really have to find out who are their weapons next year. And so I would say invest in these final 3 games in Pearsall and Cowing and trying to get them, see exactly what kind of momentum you can get for them going into the offseason.
Well, Cowing has been used exclusively as a punt returner. He's not really playing a lot of snaps from scrimmage. That may change at the end here. And Ricky, he's being targeted infrequently, and when he is, he's not coming down with the ball. And the game Thursday night, 4 targets, 1 catch for 16 yards. And I think one of the big plays, Brock ripped that 3rd and 10 to Deebo, and Deebo just took his eyes off the ball and dropped it. But there were many throws, in particular 2 to Ricky, on the outcut when they were trying to get, in closer where it didn't have to be a heave Hail Mary from midfield. He missed him on the crosser. And then he missed him, probably the biggest play of the game, the interception to Jennings. But they were trying to go at Witherspoon, Akella Witherspoon, the former Niner, and they couldn't get off of him. But Ricky did. He ran the deep post route, and he was open.
And it hung. The ball hung.
Brock underthrew him. He missed, back in the field of play where it could have broken up, and it was not a good throw. He had some throws that he wants back. He was 14 of 31, just not acceptable in the NFL, and 5 for 12 in the second half with a pick, which leads to, and I've already looked ahead, it is going to be 70 degrees and sunny in South Florida on Sunday, so we're good there. But and you've been doing this a long time. I mean, the data's out there where Brock just does not perform well in bad weather, whether it's the rain or Cleveland, the playoff game against Green Bay when he put the glove on the left hand to start. He figured it out later when he went 6 for 7 at the end. Obviously the snow game in Buffalo, the ball just slipped out of his hands. And this game on Thursday, when I saw after I left the show to go down before the game and it's starting to rain, I'm like, damn. And then the one he went down the sideline early to George, I don't even know how he got it down the field. The ball just slipped right out of his hands, Larry. So as you look forward, they love Brock. I'm not saying they're not going to re-sign him. But how do you overcome undersized quarterback for one? He's not 6'1". He's 6 feet 5/8, 7 inch tall. The hands are not big. They're 9 1/4 inches. So just controlling the ball, the inability to grip it and rip it when it's wet, whether it's rain or snow. How does the organization proceed forward with that?
It's a great question. I mean, it also, when you described the conditions Thursday night, I mean, the first thing that comes up in my mind is why in those conditions were there 31 passes and only 19 runs in a game that was a 3-point game the entire night. I felt like the plan might have been a little flip-flopped. It probably should have been a run-heavy plan. But that wasn't the question. The question was about Brock and his future. I mean, they've got to decide exactly where they're at with Brock Purdy. Are you going to sign this guy? And, his agent, Kyle Strongton out of Nashville, he's going to want market rate. He's going to want $60 to $65 million a year, I would imagine. I mean, Bill Barnwell suggested 5 years, $325 million, $65 a year. And that to me seems something I don't want to do. And I would express that to Brock's agent, that I don't want to do that. And to me, the most I would even consider would be, guys like Jalen Hurts or Tua Tagovailoa, but those guys are still making north of $50 million a year. So this is going to be a huge change in the 49ers structure of their money. And there are people that say, don't pay him, don't pay him, don't pay him. Well, okay, I'll listen to that. But then you're basically saying that you're going to entertain the idea of trading Brock Purdy at 24, and that you're going to then go out into the open market and figure out who's your quarterback after that. And, I always look at it this way, Greg, it's just how many quarterbacks in the league would I rather have than Brock? And, there's 7 or 8 I'd rather have, but I mean, he's like in that next tier. And he's, and you're going to have to pay him market rate at some point. So I don't know. I mean, I can tell you this. I know for a fact that his agent is going to say no to that. The people that are saying, well, how about 4 years, 120, give him, all guaranteed $30 million a year. He's going to want a higher AAV than that. I can guarantee that.
Lots to monitor with the Brock Purdy situation, with the 49ers offseason coming up, and what they still have left in the tank in these final 3 games. Larry, we appreciate the time. Always great catching up on a Monday. And it was good catching up in the press box on Thursday. In fact, I enjoyed it so much, it was more enjoyable than what I was watching on the field for most of it.
Hey, guys, it's always a pleasure to rap with you guys, and we'll do it again. And, the season hasn't ended. There's going to be a lot of story to be told, lots of questions, and it's only now getting juicy. So it should be really an interesting story in the weeks ahead.
Thanks, Larry. Have a great show tonight.
See you, fellas.